I wanted to talk in more detail about thumbs, these bad boys. Yes, so I did a pre-recorded video on my other page, on my biz page, about just thumb pain in general. But for musicians, thumb pain is a big deal because every instrument requires our thumbs. So, and if our thumbs are not in a good position, it makes things kind of challenging. So sometimes our instruments, we have to go into bad positions with our thumbs. But our thumbs have a specific neutral position that they love. And that position is typically not the position that our instruments want us in. I'm trying to look at the camera because I got some feedback that I look directly at the screen when I do my lives, and I guess I'm supposed to look more towards where the actual camera lens is, but it's very odd. So sorry if my eyes keep going back and forth. Anyways, I like to talk to people in person. It makes it easier when there's actually somebody you're talking to. Now I'm talking to a screen, I'm looking at myself. So anyways, so our thumb position, okay? Our thumbs like to be kind of in a nice neutral position, which is kind of just like just under our index finger, all right? That's kind of a nice relaxed position for it, all right? It doesn't like to be all the way out here. If you take your thumb and you pull your thumb all the way out, you can feel the pull in through this area. All right, and then if you take your thumb and pull it across and under, you can feel the tension in the little muscles in your hand, okay? Now, you take that, and then a lot of people have very hypermobile joints at this area, all right? And then you take that and then you hyperextend that, and that creates even more pressure, okay? So you put it into this bad position and in a extended position, and it makes for an unhappy joint. And if you do that for long periods of time, for years and years and years and years and years, you can end up with thumb problems. So I have thumb problems in my right thumb. This is from poor position at my instrument for years and years and years. And then also I do a lot of manual therapy on my patients. So that kind of cranks it up too. But what happened is that I ended up kind of stretching out the ligaments in my thumb for being in a bad position. Now there are some people that have really hypermobile joints, and their thumb will naturally go all the way back, and they really can't control it because the ligaments are the ones that actually really keep you stable here. So if you have an overstretchy ligament here, it's going to be hard for you to really stabilize that thumb, and in which case you may need more of a permanent splinting solution, but not always. So it kind of depends on what's going on. All right, so I have some interesting pictures to show you to kind of give you an idea of what bad thumb positions look like. So here's one, okay? So with that, you can see how hyperextended that thumb is, and you can kind of see all the tension down in through here, all right? And that tension down in through here then gets placed up into the index finger as well, and it can go down, come on, oops. That's not what I wanted to happen, into the wrist area as well. But if you kind of look in through there, right, so it's kind of in that position. So this is a guitarist. This is very common on guitar with guitar players, very, very common. So it says somebody's watching me, but it's not telling me who. So hi, oh, there it is. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for watching. So this is one very common thing that I see a lot, all right? And then what happens is this patient has a lot of thumb pain, right? Because not only is their thumb really hyperextended here on the neck of their guitar, but there's a lot of tension in the little muscles in the hand. It does look painful, doesn't it, Debbie? And that's actually not even probably the worst picture. And he has thumb pain. So we're really working on readjusting his position at the instrument. All right, I have a couple other ones to show you. So this is a flute player. This was me, okay, when I first started playing, actually, probably a little bit worse. So you can sort of see how contracted her thumb is. This one looks pretty painful too, right, Debbie? You can see how contracted her thumb is down through here, and then how hyperextended she is right in through there. So again, if you just take your hand and you pull your thumb all the way across, it's really not a very comfortable position to be in for very long periods of time. So what happens is that her finger was actually down underneath the middle finger. So if you take your thumb and you pull it underneath your middle finger and you're holding onto your instrument at the same time, you can actually just feel that tension. So really what our goal is just to move the thumb out a little bit more, essentially just under the trill key, maybe the E key. Yeah, check them out and see in the fall, because this is a big thing. It's important to see what position they're playing in, because most of the time when we first start learning, we just put our hands on the instrument and we start playing. So we don't know if we're doing it right or wrong. We're usually doing it in band, right? And then we get into this habit of kind of a junky position. So the sooner you can correct this, the better, because it is harder to make these changes after we've been playing for a really, really long time. So she's really good. She makes changes like you would not believe. It's unbelievable. So this was when I first saw her. She was actually initially further under. And she was under her E key, actually. I'm trying to point to the screen. She was under this key here, all right, or now she's a little bit more under that trill key. But, so that's a really contracted position. Now this is, I think I went the wrong way, I did. Okay, so this is another picture of that thumb, all right, and you can sort of see, again, from this angle, just how hyperextended that thumb is. Okay, now she does not have any pain. She came to see me for preventative reasons, so that she can prevent as much as she can going forward and moving into the future. So she's making the changes that she needs to now, so that she can then hopefully not have issues later on in life. So, but that's really not a very happy thumb there either, if I'm going the right way. And here is the other thumb. So this is on the B key for all you flute players out there. All right, and this one's not horrible, but it's not great. You can sort of see how the tip joint wants to hyperextend, and she's kind of contracted in a little bit. So what happens is these little muscles in our thumb do all the work, and they get so tired. They get really, really, really tired. So a lot of times when you have people that have a lot of thumb pain, especially from being in, oops, that's on my puppies, sorry, from being in this position and being really contracted down and through here, that these muscles get really, really, really cranky, and you have to calm them down first. So it's a matter of doing some manual therapy as well, teaching some soft tissue mobilizations for patients to do at home, which is really, really important, and then getting into a better position and a better technique at the same time. So what do I do a lot of the time? Yes, exactly. You want it to kind of be in more of the shape of the C. Exactly, Debbie. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, and it's one of those things you have to move kind of slowly. So she was under her E key, all right? So she's under her E key. She's pretty far under. So if you were to move from the E all the way to the F, that would be kind of too far all at once. And she tried that, and it just kind of tweaked too much on the other side, because you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. So you change one thing, and then you just want to make sure that you don't get symptoms in another part of the hand. So as you kind of pull your thumb out, what was happening is she was sort of tweaking her wrist a little bit and getting some pain over on this side of her wrist. So you want to move slowly. So what we ended up doing is kind of finding a happy medium and going under the trill key initially. And that seemed to be a little bit more comfortable. And then the one thing you want to watch too is that other fingers are not doing funky things as well. So like some people will extend their little finger and it'll kind of be completely straight. So that's one thing to watch out for too. But yeah, the best position, the happiest position for the thumb is kind of right under the index finger in the shape of a C, all right? But not always doable. And especially with string players, guitar players, when they have to move up and down the neck of their instrument, they have to kind of go into some of the funky positions, but the key is to come out of those positions as much as you can. I think I thought I had a violinist in here, and I don't. Darn it. A bunch of pictures of the dog at the vet, but I have a picture of so this is one thing. This is a type of splint that I fit with people. And this was an okay splint for him. This is the guitarist. So it took away a lot of that hyperextension that he had, but it wasn't the best thing. So what we do, as long as the patient's not really, really hyper mobile and they can maintain kind of a bent position in the thumb, I like to use splints as biofeedback only. So you start with retraining with a splint on, which kind of helps with the biofeedback process. They use it for a couple months, and then once they sort of, the body understands that it's supposed to be in this position, you start weaning from the splint a little bit here and there. So So he actually had one on his right thumb that he was using as well. He's got a shorter thumb, so we put a splint on there because he was hyperextending that thumb on the string as well. But he's not using that anymore at all now because he's been able to retrain that thumb to stay in a nice neutral position or slightly bent. So he's not, he's in this position or down. He's not in that hyperextended position. So that worked really, really well for him. And then, so on the other side, yes, getting that muscle memory, exactly. And breaking the muscle memory is really one of the hardest things, because once we've learned something a certain way, it's so hard to fix it. I mean, think about it, when you learn a passage or a phrase the wrong way and your fingers learn the wrong notes in there, it is so hard to relearn. I remember learning a lick wrong and having to go back and play it like 400 times, slow as molasses, just to try to erase that muscle memory that I had, and then reprogram the new pathway of the right way that I actually needed to do it. So yes, totally true, totally true. The muscle memory is huge. So hopefully you can see this. There keeps coming in glare. So this is actually a splint I made for him. And it gave him a lot more feedback than that other splint. So this is the guitarist again, gave him a lot more feedback. So he can't go into that hyperextended position at all. And but it does allow him a little bit of a bend, which is good. So as soon as he put it on and tried it, first he hated it. He wanted to kill me. But then he was like, oh, wait a minute. And he realized other things that he had been doing wrong that he had been trying to correct. So a lot of times it's just kind of figuring out what is the best thing and trying something for a little while and being like, okay, that helps, but it's not the best thing yet. So let's try something else. And there's taping techniques that you can use as well that give you some biofeedback training as well. But the key is to get that thumb out of that hyperextended position and that contracted position in through here. All right. So the key is that, with your students and everything, if you can start them out initially, in a better position, that's huge. And you're doing them such a favor. But know that every hand is different. And every hand can't always go into the best possible position. You kind of have to work within the anatomy of the person and what their instrument actually, what they're like at their instrument. So the other big thing that happens with thumbs is the death grip. All right, so you can sort of see, like, if I'm just gonna hold, I don't have a pen, so if I just take my glasses and I hold them, all right, I'm holding them nice and relaxed. All right, you can sort of see that. So what happens when I do this? All right, there's a different energy when I do this versus when I do this. So the energy and the death grip of the thumb, I call it, where you're like really trying to strangle the instrument, is really not good. It can be difficult yeah, you're right. Exactly. It's so difficult for a band director. I don't know how you guys do it, because you've got so many instruments. You've got so many instruments to try and do. You can't. That's the thing. It's like, unless you're doing it in group sessions, and even the one-on-one, if you've got a whole section of clarinetists or flutists or whatever, to work with everybody individually is really impossible. It's not feasible. Unless you bring in specialists for each instrument and have them come in and do lessons. I know some schools do that. But it's the thing too, is that a lot of musicians don't know the anatomy and physiology. So you don't know what position is the best position to be in. I never knew what the best position to be in was. Why would I know? Like, I never went to school for this. I never learned about, anatomy, physiology, body mechanics, joint mechanics. I had no clue. So I just went into what felt right for me as a player. And it felt right for me for a long time until it didn't feel right, because I had burned out my muscles and things change and stress levels change and all that affects your playing. So you're right. You just do the best that you can as a band director, and that's all you can do. It's all you can do. You take the knowledge that you have and you apply it when you can, and you send people out as much as possible. And that's my goal with teaching this course, and hopefully people doing the online course as well, is to get to as many people as possible so that they can take these techniques and pass them on to their students and help them with themselves as well, because it does make a big difference, and you don't want to suffer with pain. So that's for sure. Keep in the proper position. I try very hard to keep them in the proper position. It can be difficult. Okay, so I did read that. Sorry, I thought there was another one. Sorry. So yeah, so the death grip is really, really not good either, because you're contracting and really, really, really engaging these muscles so hard over here. So a lot of this is just talking to them about the energy that they're using when they're holding onto their instrument. What are they afraid of? Because there's a fear there, like, I gotta hold on for dear life. So why are you holding on for dear life? Why are they holding on for dear life? Just me. So it's one of those things that you want to just be aware of the muscle tension that's in your hand, and then that's something that to work on too. So if you're a player that plays really, really tight in your thumb, you have to look at, do you feel stable? Like, does your instrument feel stable when you're holding it? Because a lot of times, especially with guitarists and everything, you're trying to stabilize the instrument at the same time, and a lot of people will use their thumbs to help stabilize the instrument. So there's other ways to get around stabilizing your instrument so that you can relax your hands as much as you possibly can. So that's one thing to always think about, is to make sure that your instrument is feeling stable on you wherever you're playing, whether it's up here and you're not death gripping, your violin or your flute or your clarinet or your saxophone. That's a big thing. And the weight of a saxophone can be a whole nother issue as well. So each instrument has their own thumb things. That is for sure. I don't have pictures. I'm going to get some more pictures of everything. My patients are getting mad at me for taking pictures of them all the time. So death grip of the thumb contracts these muscles way too much. And I see that all the time. So they're holding on for dear life, either because their instrument doesn't feel stable, it's tension in their hand. They're not putting their breath where it needs to go, and the tension is coming out into their hands. So that's one of the things to think about as well. And then again, overall positioning. And then again, like I said, if people are really hyperlax, it's one of those things that they may just need to have a splint on them full time so that they can be in a better position for that reason. So those are the big things that I do when it comes to thumb pain. Definitely always look at technique. I always try to figure out if there's a biofeedback technique that we can use to get them into a better position, to do it slowly, because if you move and you change a position too quickly, you can cause problems in other areas. So it's kind of like, you're working up to a certain area. Checking muscle tension and the approach to the instrument. I think that was one of the things I had talked about, how much tension are you when you come and work at your instrument? Are you really, really, really tight? And if you're really tight, then you have to figure out why and dig into why. Well, why are my muscles so tight? Like, what am I afraid of? And what's going on, and look into that, and then work on relaxing those muscles and retraining, because then it's probably become a habit, and there you have that muscle memory again, Debbie, right? So it's like that muscle memory of instead of relaxed. So it's a matter of working into that. And for patients, I usually tell them to, hold a position and just play a long tone, and then, kind of slowly push, pull down into what amount of pressure they need, and then relax out until they can actually get the sound that they like. I do this a lot with string players when they're depressing their strings, because a lot of times they're like that, instead of just kind of pushing down. So we kind of work gradually into it so that they can figure out how much pressure they need in order to get the sound that they love and that they need in order to play. Trying to think of what else. Oh, so clarinetists and saxophonists, sometimes you actually have to move the thumb rests on the instrument because for the person's hand, it doesn't put them in claws of doom. I know, right? It's true. And most of the players don't even realize that they have the claw of doom because that's just become a habit. It's become a habit. So they don't even realize how tense they are until you point it out and you kind of sort of have them feel it, and they're like, oh yeah. But it's a hard habit to break. It's those darn habits. It's a hard habit to break. But you can do it, and I've had patients do it, and you'll be so much better off for it when you do make those changes, because A, you don't want to have pain, and B, you want to play forever. You don't want to have to deal with injuries. So back to saxophonists and clarinetists. So that's a big thing in terms of the positioning of the thumb posts on the instrument. So sometimes you have to have them take them to their repair person and actually adjust them. Neck straps are tough. because some neck straps really will pull patients into kind of a forward position, people into a forward position. So it's a matter of, that's one of those things that can be a domino effect as well. So that's why it's really hard to be like, it's cookie cutter for this instrument, it's cookie cutter for this instrument, and it's just not, because everybody's body is so different. You know, some people's thumbs are longer, some people's thumbs are shorter, some people's posture is more upright, some people's posture is more forward. So it really kind of depends on the person, and a lot of times it's a process of changing things and slowly changing things, and then really work on the soft tissues. A lot of times what I'll have people do is get a golf ball and then put the golf ball down on a table and then rub in through that area, and kind of, a lot of times they'll find a trigger point in there, and you just sort of hang out into that trigger point and rest into there. I do this a lot when I drive. I find a specific spot on my gear shift, and I like lean into that and work that muscle belly in through here as well, where I just kind of find a spot and I pull on it. Debbie, is there a particular brand of neck strap that is better, or is it dependent on the individual? It is dependent on the individual, and actually for saxophone players, and a lot of them hate this, but I do see them playing with it more often than they used to, is the backpack strap. So I have a patient I've been trying to convince to get one. It's a psychological thing that some people don't want to wear that kind of thing, and because it hasn't been the norm. So, and it's the same thing for guitar players and mandolin players. I have a mandolin player right now, and trying to find the perfect strap for her is a process. And then sometimes we adjust them. So I'll put padding on them. We'll adjust kind of how they're used. So it really does depend. And then for clarinetists, I honestly would prefer for patients to be able to have the upper body strength and the proximal strength up here to be able to hold the instrument in the right position without having to also have the death grip on their fingers too. And it can be done, but it's a matter of putting the work in to do the whole body connection, and to work on that strengthening of the upper body. So yeah, everything really is individualized. It makes it a little bit difficult. There are certain things, like for guitars, there's a lift. I'm having a really hard time thinking of the name of it right now. I can probably find a picture of it. It's a guitar support, and it's attached by magnets. So they put magnets inside the guitar, and it hooks into the magnets, and it's amazing, and it's adjustable, because I'm not a big fan of the footstool, because it throws the pelvis off. So, but in terms of neck straps for clarinetists and saxophonists, it really kind of depends. And you don't want that to be pulling their posture forward or their head forward. That's one of the big things sometimes that happens, is you put a neck strap on and then all of a sudden they naturally go into this head forward posture, which is just a reaction for some reason. There's no need for them to do that, but they tend to do that. So it's a matter of making sure that they bring their neck back into that normal aligned position. So yeah, so lots of things to talk about. Thanks for asking all these questions, Debbie. I love it. And if you have any questions or things that you want to know about in general, please either post them on my biz page that I posted that question. You can post them here, or on my personal page too. I posted that question for people for what things they'd like to know about. So any questions on thumbs or anything else, please comment below and let me know. We try to have them think of a string pulling them up. Yeah. Which instrument are you talking about? A string pulling them up. Are you talking about the saxophone and the clarinet? You're trying to pull the instrument up with the strap, is what I'm assuming. I know there's a delay, so there's always a delay. Let's see. For the saxes, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Posture is a big thing for saxophone players too, because the instrument is so stinking heavy. So when it comes to saxophone and the heavier instruments, it's a matter of doing a lot of this proximal strengthening a lot of core stability exercises. And this is where the whole health and really treating yourself like an athlete comes into play. And it's hard when if you've got younger kids too. It's hard because they don't necessarily they don't do that. So this is really, this is when it gets, I was having a conversation actually with this, about this with a patient who teaches a lot in the school system, and she's mostly high school teaching, but, and at what point, like, how much do you drill into the kids? Because at what point are they playing so much that they're going to run into these issues? But you also don't know if somebody's going to go on and have a career in music. Like when I started playing in 5th grade, I knew immediately that this is what I was going to do. Not everybody knows that. So, you want to make sure you set them up as best as you can. And then as they advance in their playing and as they advance with studying, and with the amount of time that they're at their instrument, you then can slowly tweak things as time goes on. But, as you get closer to knowing you want to have a career in music and you want to be playing hours and hours a day and playing all these gigs, it's really crucial for them to then get into an overall wellness program so that you're working on, stress management, you're working on diet and health and exercise and all the muscles that you need to play your instrument in the best possible position as you possibly can. And then to also do exercises to get you out of the deforming position that the instrument puts you in. So, for violins, you're always, this way. So you really want to get them out and have them do a lot of things that bring them open in this position. So for saxophone, they're, hunker down in this position. So you want to get them up and open into the other position. So I don't know if you guys, and if there's really even time, but, just a quick physical warm up before you actually have everybody sit down to play is a great thing to do. I'm not sure, what level are you teaching? Are you middle school, elementary school, high school? And it's good to just do a physical quick warm-up anyways before you sit down and play, and if kids are practicing as well. If you can get the kids to practice. My kids never practiced. I teach grades 4 through 12. Wow, you have a huge range. Wow, how do you do that? 4 through 12? Oh my God. My head spins just thinking about that. You have to constantly be switching where you're at mentally when you're teaching, don't you? That's a lot. Wow, 4 to 12. And are you strings too, or are you strings too? They didn't even offer strings when I was in school. That's how long ago it was. I wish they did. That would have been fun. So are you band or strings or both? Gosh, if you're both, that's crazy. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, and then, typical band size. It's a private school, and I'm assistant to the main band director. I work with band. I got to do Seymour and sub for orchestras. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. God bless you. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on your plate. Yeah. So it's when it comes to doing all this technique stuff, it's really a lot to ask of band directors to, sit down and work on specific technique with every single person. But I guess I'm trying to think of I don't know how it works now, but when we had band and we first started playing, I want to say we had like one lesson every week, maybe. It probably wasn't even every week, with the band director, and it was like the whole flute section. So depending on how big your section is. So I guess that's one point in time when you can really kind of just touch on these things and basic positioning in general, so that they have kind of an idea. This way we can pull kids out in smaller groups. I do focus a lot on position because of my own wrist problems. Oh no, what's wrong with your wrists? I had put a post up because when you guys joined the group, some of you had asked questions, and I thought it would save the questions, but it didn't, because I was going to go back and answer them, but I just hit accept into the group, and then it wouldn't let me go back and look at questions. So there was like 2 or 3 people that actually had questions. I put a post up and asked you guys to repost those questions so that I could address them, but I haven't heard from anybody. So A ligament tear. Okay. Wait, we had this conversation, I think, right? Tears. Yes, we did have this conversation. And my memory is a little bit odd these days. Summer brain and summer schedule. Yeah. Yeah. Back and forth, and I remember now. Yeah. Did you go see anybody? We can talk about it. You can message me. Message me. We don't have to do it here. Yeah, that's hard. Yeah, so you're right. Positions are key, and wrist positions for instruments are super important too. And actually, I see if I can find it quick. Of course, there's a reason for it. I remember your story though. As soon as you mentioned it, I just was trying to place my a name to the conversation. That's where I go bad, is with the name thing. That's always my problem, is the name thing. I'm trying to find, I have a really bad wrist position, actually, an overall posture position picture that I can show you, because wrist position is key. And this girl had started playing mandolin and just played for fun, and she was in this crazy position, and her wrist was killing her, and she's only been playing for like a year and a half, but she really wanted to continue, and of course I can't find it now. If I find it, I will take a picture of it and I will post it so you can sort of see. But yeah, wrist positions on our instruments are key as well, and a lot of the time our wrist position changes with our thumb position, and also our shoulder and our elbow position. So depending on what instrument it is, you can actually tweak your wrist position by moving your shoulder and by moving your elbow. But again, you want to make sure that you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's one of those fine-tuning things that comes into play. So yeah, personal message me, and we can talk further about where you're at with all of that. So all right, I'm gonna sign off now on my thumbs, but we can talk about wrists too. I can certainly do a live about wrists, and if anybody has anything in particular they want me to talk about, I would love that. The balance is the key. Yeah, the balance is super key, and it's a very fine balancing act. Very fine balancing act, and it really is different for everybody. And sometimes you don't want to go too far. Like with that flute player, I wanted her to be kind of more under her index finger, because that kind of puts her in a much better position. But for her, she couldn't do it yet. She tried it for a little while, and she could physically do it, but it made her uncomfortable on the other side of her hand. And then there was actually a little bit of a compensation going on over here as well, which was causing tension down in through here. And that was kind of just a posturing thing. So what we did is we just brought the thumb in under a little bit more, so it was under the trill key more, and then realized, okay, gotta just kind of relax this guy, because he was just hanging up for no reason, and that's the E flat key. Most of the time they're hyperextended. He was straight on the instrument, but straight and raised up a little bit. So that's one of the things too, is that a lot of times you'll find people positioning their bodies and their fingers in a certain space that they don't really need to be. It's just sort of becomes a habit. So like some people, if for your A flat key on your flute, they'll kind of stick their finger up in the air, right? And that's a positioning thing. Like, it doesn't need to be, but in the meantime, your poor little finger is extending the entire time while your other fingers are trying to bend down. And then when it actually has to hit that A flat key, it's got really far to come down to hit that key. So watch for little funky things that they may be doing that they may not even be aware of. That's the key. A lot of times we're just not aware of the things that we're doing. Even just as as professional players, a lot of people aren't aware of the things that they're doing, because they're just sitting down to play and nobody's watching them. So, all right, I'm going to head out and do some more work. I have to write more of my content for my course. So again, if you guys have questions or comments, please comment below. Debbie, thank you. It was awesome chatting with you. Thank you for being live with me and asking and commenting. I love the more interactiveness of this rather than me talking to myself. And I'm sorry if my eyes are all over the place. I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to look. So if you have feedback for me as to where I need to look or what I need to do, or if I look too funny, please let me know. All right. I hope you have a great day.